I certainly don't intend to start every video with a disclaimer, but yikes, since we're dealing with Miyazaki and anime, both for the first time here, I kind of have to disclaim because the expectation gap of what I'm expected to talk about and what I'm actually going to talk about is quite vast. Also, I'm sorry ahead of time and I love you, but especially by so much so quickly, I'm out of my depth in animation, especially that of the Japanese persuasion, so I'm simply going to talk about this movie like I talk about any movie. So, here's what the story of Princess Mononoke means to me. Princess Mononoke is a 1997 Japanese film written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki that was later released in America in 1999, translated into English by Neil "The Pit Snake" Gaiman. Hey Neil, that nickname's free. The Pit Snake. It was the highest grossing film of all time in Japan until Titanic was released later that same year. Two of the truest love stories of all time. Nah, I'm just playing. Mononoke is a movie where people get their heads shot off by arrows. Headshot. I don't want to second guess and say that Titanic would have been better if there were, like, people getting their domes cracked off by rudimentary projectiles, but, like, I'm reasonably certain. So this movie opens grandly. Keith David brings us up to speed with world building for the animated universe, and then the title is just like, "Hello from the other side. I have arrived. Take your seats for the majesty with which you are about to indulge." Yes, the music in this movie is really that good. The music for the film was composed by Joe Hisaishi, who composed the vast majority of the scores for Miyazaki's films, and even his video games like Ni no Kuni 1 and 2. He has 101 composer credits on IMDb, which is kind of an absurd number when you break that down. Sure, John Williams has 145, Danny Elfman has 104, Hans Zimmer has 179, but some of those are gimmies. Hisaishi composed the music for Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away, Kiki's Delivery Service, My Neighbor Totoro, Castle in Sky, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and Porco Rosso. At the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Ashitaka, the last prince of the Emishi tribe, when a disturbing sausage demon corrupts a pig lord of unusual size and attempts to destroy their village. Ashitaka bravely defends his people, killing the demon, but not before it ensnares his arm and bestows upon him a deadly curse. Do you like curses? Good, because we're going to be talking about this one a lot. The village's wise woman attempts to ease the suffering of the demon, and that does not go so hot.
O nameless god of rage and hate, I bow before you. Pass on in peace and bear us no hatred.
His name was actually Nago, but that's neither here nor there because then this porcine demon lord responds, "Disgusting little creatures. Soon all of you will feel my hate and suffer as I have suffered." And then the self-cleaning demon Febrezes away, leaving only the fresh scent of a slammin' sour cream and onion Yankee candle. Yeah, I spent the time to Photoshop little bits of onion and Crispies into the candle. That's attention to detail. The wise woman then reveals the fate of the cursed Ashitaka. His curse will spread through his body and eventually kill him. But he can rise and meet his fate by traveling west and stopping the evil that is growing within and corrupting their land. And you feel it. The charge placed upon this young man to defend his village once more, even though he is already fated to die, is palpable. An ancient Muromachi village bylaws are all bitch, and the Homeowners Association handbook clearly states that Ashitaka has to cut off his top knot, leave, and just because injuries are best with insults.
Whatever comes to pass now, you are dead to us forever.
And he's like, yeah, okay. It's ice cold, wise woman. And with that, as our story begins, our hero, Ashitaka, who was told there might be a cure out west, which works out because he's already banished, so his decision is pretty much made up for him. Oh, and a quick heads up, I'm gonna spend a lot of time talking about environments and environmentalism. You gasp? Alarmed by my statement of palpable fact, I can promise you that it's not in the way that you're probably thinking I'm going to talk about it. Princess Mononoke takes place during the Japanese Muromachi era, which lasted from 1336 to 1573 and was a period of great industrial upheaval. Just prior to this era was the dismantling of imperial rule known as the Kenmu Restoration, which was actually intending to do the opposite and restore imperial rule, but failed. During the Muromachi era, Japan traded wood, ore, sulfur, even swords with the Ming Dynasty. And this is important to this story because a central argument of this movie is what the boom did to the lands these villages reside on. Here's a fun Miyazaki quote that I feel sums up a lot of my feelings on this film. The concept of portraying evil and then destroying it. I know it is considered mainstream, but I think it is rotten. This idea that whenever something evil happens, someone particular can be blamed for it in life and in politics is hopeless. I'm sure a quote like that wouldn't lead a creator to write a story with no villains, only mutually opposing viewpoints that make perfect sense to the person in question. Nago is a corrupted god, which the humans have blame in. Jigo is probably the closest thing the film has to an actual bad person, and he shelters and feeds our hero in Act 1, and not as a trick, out of kindness, and Lady Eboshi made a haven for those marginalized by society and puts them to work. No villains, only viewpoints. This is why the wise woman does not blame Nago when he attacks them, but simply tries to ease his passing. It does not combat the root problem. In his mind, evil is a byproduct of many flawed actions and ideals, and even though that evil must be dealt with, the blame does not fall onto the victim. It falls onto the village. Nago had a tiny piece of metal lodged deeply within his body that had corrupted him. Evil is a concept that is not shunned in the film, but it is given a root of existence that is not generally the fault of that being that it happened to. It's actually quite a pragmatic outlook considering that Nago and Ashitaka are both destroyed by a single ball of metal that is never really given a reason for existing, and I shit you not, everything that happens in this movie can be traced back to this opening scene, because our actions and ideals have unintended consequences, and sometimes that consequence is evil. You must deal with it swiftly, but you are also responsible for it and to it as a product of your environment. Metals are made by people, not spirits, and not forest deities. Evil is not created in a vacuum. If people are a product of their environment, then the people of that environment bear some of the blame. So as Ashitaka sets off in the middle of the night, saying goodbye to no one per the rules of his society, his younger sister Kaya runs out and immediately introduces logical human fallibility to the equation. She basically says, damn the archaic superstitious laws, you're my brother and I demand you take Chekhov's arrowhead.
Your crystal dagger. Kaya, I can't take that.
Okay, crystal dagger that is obviously a crystal arrowhead that she is giving to a divinely corrupted god archer. Actually, that's not true at all. It serves a completely different purpose. Ashitaka re-gifts it to San.
From Ashitaka? For me? Pretty.
What? I mean, it was only the last gift his sister, whom he'll never see again, gave him as he left in the middle of the night, but more on that right now. But let's talk about coming of age, because this is something I found to be less explored in my readings about the film. You could say this is a film about the young coming to terms with their decisions as they reach adulthood, and by this I mean Miyazaki actually said something similar about Ashitaka. From Miyazaki's perspective, Ashitaka should not have killed the forest spirit. Cursed for a reason. Miyazaki refers to this directly. He did something he should never have done. Thus, he has deep regret, which manifests him as a non-person. That's why he covers up his face in the outside world, to show that he is no longer living, so to speak. Miyazaki said that the moment this occurs is when he cuts off the top knot. At that moment, he was no longer human, which are Miyazaki's exact words. This is fascinating to me because before this moment, Miyazaki refers to Ashitaka as a boy, and since the moment he steps up to defend his village, killing Nago and deciding to take the step up to manhood with his action, but instead, he takes the step to nothing. Ashitaka was a boy, and instead of becoming a man, he became nothing. A brother would never leave a sister he loved so deeply without saying goodbye, but nothing? Nothing just leaves, which I think a great deal of the story hinges on this when viewed from that perspective. Ashitaka, the boy who never became a man, now manifests itself as his remaining humanity buried deeply within him, fighting to stay alive. He struggles with this from the first moment. He cuts the top knot off and goes to leave under the cover of darkness as he is no one now, but when confronted with his sister, he pulls down the mask. So he fails his own village-decreed self-isolation from pretty much moment one, and then like 100 more times throughout the film. Of some importance, as Ashitaka is but a boy fighting against his nothing, he's completely unprepared for the outside world. He tries to buy rice with gold, something worth far more than what he is attempting to purchase. And then we meet Jigo, another source of good old-fashioned cynicism and pathos. He learns of Ashitaka's curse and retorts,
"So you say you're under a curse? Well, so what? So's the whole damn world."
Got him! He's fatalistic about death, accepting it as a step of life that everyone must go through.
My point is everybody dies, boy. Some now, some later. From brothel girl to emperor.
So Jigo had the potential answer to Ashitaka's predicament, but also probably certain death. They venture west, or westernly to the westum. They went left. And then we meet our villain, or what qualifies as one in Miyazaki's world. This movie uses really simple shorthand to tell us that these people are suffering from a bad case of the evils.
They shot guns at dogs.
So the dogs kick all their asses in the villain. Jesus Christ! I'm not doing John Wick 2 yet, so can we not with the dog shit, please? Thank you, God. Never mind, the doggy's fine because our titular character is sucking the blood out of his throat. Okay. So Ashitaka shows... I need a second. So Ashitaka shows up and talks to Princess Mononoke, or at least that's what the chapter on the Blu-ray says, because she's neither a princess nor named Mononoke, and as that's just a translation of Mononoke Hime, or loosely translated as Spirit Princess, which makes the princess title more of an ironic prefix and a nickname more than anything else, as the forest spirits merely adopted her as their own. But you know, Disney gotta eat, so now she's Princess Mononoke standing alongside the other Disney. Oh, for f***'s sake, I'm gonna be sick!
Cheers, Babbitts.
These are the perfect bit of Miyazaki weird freak flag flying type of late night Arby's run acid trip that nobody serves up hotter than Studio Ghibli. Yes, the Kodama are ancient Japanese folklore based on hundreds of years of stories, but flip the pause button real quick because Kodama are really just forest spirits that look like trees, and if you accidentally cut one down, dummy, you getting a curse! These are not that. These are contradictions, unsettling while relaxing, rhythmic yet asynchronous, inviting while terrifying. All they do is shake their butts and wiggle their bobbleheads like they're birds, but they move just enough like a child to make you collect the plushy version of the Kodama and squeeze the shit out of it with love just before one of these little f***s appears in your absolute worst nightmare of your entire life.
We never left. We never left, Samuel. Samuel, going the children of crime. The faces don't remember you, Samuel. The bonds also forgotten. Don't leave us, Samuel. We're dying.
God, if your name is Sam, I just f***ed up your day, huh?
Don't leave us, Samuel. We're dying.
I think I'm doing Miyazaki proud because this episode is really starting to get super weird and I am super into the swell of delirium. And yes, the forest spirits are the connective tissue between the world of the humans and the forest spirits, blah blah blah, conduit to ensure the man treats their Mother Earth with respect, and yeah, we all got it. But I think it's more complicated than it might appear at face value because it attempts to bridge that very difficult divide between symbolic gesture gnomes, Akira armed arrow-slinging god boys, and ghostly hell forests. Sometimes this symbolism isn't just be good to nature, because as Hao said earlier about evil, it only exists when you maintain the right conditions to make it, and both the forest and the humans cause their own substantively diverse versions of evil to exist. But that street goes both ways. Humans not taking proper care of their environment at the turn into an industrial age causes the forest to create greater dangers and awaken some gnarly-ass forest gods, which in turn causes the humans to create the conditions for a person like Lady Eboshi, an industrialist and leader of Irontown who accepts the job of continually clearing the forest of these dangers, which in turn causes the forest gods like Nago to be corrupted, therefore corrupting Ashitaka, which in turn claims the lives of some. The cycle doesn't end. It's a give and take. The humans have to give a little and not push their interests so far into the forest that the entire ecosystem collapses, therefore killing plant and human alike. And nature has to give a little too, as humans are a newer idea in the world than, f***ing trees, who had like 90 billion years to figure their shit out. Both sides take turns giving until they reach a workable equilibrium. The humans declaring war on the forest spirit is basically like a person declaring war on their own lungs. And when you think about it, nature has some crazy huge monsters and scary shit on their resume. But even 800 years back into history when this takes place, that's still no match for humans. Nature can't go to war with humanity. Sorry, Shyamalan. Because that's a war that nature loses. That's a war that nature's literally losing right now in real life. But I mean, humans need nature to survive and, breathe and eat and stuff. So you have to find a way to live together. And this is especially hard when the worlds of nature and man, as in this film, are inching ever closer to mutually assured destruction. And wouldn't you know it, the only two people standing in the way of humanity and nature's zesty, pungent ruination is no one and a proxy for nature, both outcasts. Hey, that's like one of those lesson things. Because, as it turns out, when you kill nature, it kills you right back. Hey, that's true in the movie and in real life. And that's not me trying to be political, as I don't think I really even said anything inflammatory. I mean, you can freely not believe that man-made climate change is occurring. That's your right. But just go with me for a second, because this story can be considered as a simple morality tale that can be summed up in the following. Hey, don't kill the thing you live on, idiot. It's a simple premise, and humans in this movie fuck it up so bad. And going all the way back to the beginning, since Ashitaka is not a human, he is not counted among the humans for f***ing up so bad. And neither of the people that save all of them actually identify as human. We know Ashitaka is nothing, and San has disavowed her humanity. And maybe what I'm really saying is this movie is a pitch-perfect illustration of why dumb arguments escalate so quickly, because no one backs down. Here's some important true things to keep in mind in real life and stuff. It's okay to be wrong. Not everything has to be a war. It's okay to forgive people when they mess up, even if they hurt you in the process. And again, with machine precision, fight less, talk more, say sorry sometimes. Sure, the people in this film are arguing against an animate forest, but hey, that's like a metaphor. Every situation in this movie escalates like a Chrysler strapped to a Saturn V rocket. I shout one thing, you escalate, well, your arms are shot off now, aren't they? Please don't fire at me! What? Fire at you? Like, God help you if you arbitrarily escalated disagreement in this movie, because the chances of you losing a limb, but more probably your face and not what it is attached to, is over 9,000. Get it? This is an anime joke. It's like literally the only one that I could think of. It's all I know. I'm sorry. So when Miyazaki and the film go out of their way to show you that these two sides are not involved in a simple argument with one of the most fascinating juxtapositions of all time, we get our first scene between Ashitaka and Lady Eboshi, and we learn why her rise to power was done with such ease. As it turns out, the industry of war is super profitable, and she managed to put everyone to work, including the brothel girls and lepers, who by all accounts love their job and are happy with their lot in life, surely far better than most of the portrayals of lepers in films that I've seen.
Is this your finger?
Marginalized people flock to her because she makes these people matter in an archaic system that does not allow them to flourish, only struggle. Because this movie has no villain, it simply has people that are cursed for an absurd reason. Eboshi is like this because she's a product of her environment. Ashitaka is like this because he acted too quickly without fully considering the consequences. San is like this because she's like a wolf person who doesn't shower enough. But hey, the lepers are making weapons to deploy in the ongoing war against the forest god, which enrages Ashitaka something fierce because his greatest fear is quickly becoming unavoidable. She is a boon to her people, she provides them security and livelihood. The lepers live in a literal garden, and they're always smiling, and they're super adorable and polite, and they feel lucky to have her with good reason, which is extra complicated for Ashitaka now because the only entity that can cure him just had all-out war declared on it by a venture capitalist. Or more succinctly, the situation has created the conditions for evil to exist because they are all now in perpetual escalation toward an apocalyptic demise. Gosh, that sure sounds like an impossible situation with no clear solution that will ultimately lead to a totality of death. The situation could really use a wild card.
Wild card!
Enter Mononoke Hime, the wild card. Yeah, she pretty much cuts through an army like they're butter figurines, but as we soon learn, she is consumed by hate, the very thing driving the machine toward war. And Ashitaka, in a very literal sense, absorbs her hate and carries it. We get our first real glimpse at the weight he's carrying. I mean, he's standing in between the two sides of the conflict, simultaneously the most and least human among them. And he gets shot for it. And while it's easy to assemble tree-planting guerrilla spirits and killer boars and smelt thousands upon thousands of guns, and to fall in line on one side or the other, shouldn't we consider the real hero of the story the one standing in the middle, attempting to civilize the conflict and form an agreement without violence? And the forest spirit saves him by drinking his— wait a minute. But the forest spirit only cures him of his gunshot disease, not his curse disease. Then San and Ashitaka co-masticate, and the conflict escalates to large-scale violence outside of the horrendously wounded that the film does not shy away from showing us. Almost too many weird bloodstuffs. Actors in this conflict begin dying, and all those casualties do is fuel the war machine driving the whole thing. Jesus Christ! And Ashitaka fails to convince Lady Eboshi to actually go back and defend the people she swore up and down the entire film that she actually cared about. But oops, guess not! She goes on after the forest spirit, letting her people die, and the conflict kinda literally starts devouring those involved regardless of which side they're on. And then Eboshi shoots the forest spirit through the brain queso, and pretty much everyone starts going down. And what this movie does so brilliantly is that in an effort to introduce you to as many characters on all sides as possible, you end up wanting and sort of needing the peaceful solution. The situation grows so bad so instantly after the death of the forest spirit that Ashitaka is forced to admit that he is still a human being. San follows suit, admitting no matter how much she wishes she were a wolf, she's a human too. In a situation where the conditions to create evil were met, evil is created, and Eboshi kills the forest spirit, which was assuredly the only thing keeping them from certain and instantaneous doom. Even at the end, Sun is still fighting, but fighting against Ashitaka as the world collapses around them for no other reason than, hey, don't kill the thing you live on, idiot. And the climax is where the good drugs kick in, because humans are pretty much just in shit condition when it comes to making decisions because they are attacking the people trying to save the world while the world is quite literally devoured in the background. Cognitive dissonance much? These dudes were all sworn protectors of their people and their realm, and they're having a bit of a slap fight in the center of a hurricane. Evil is seemingly portrayed as a thing that makes an entity make less sense as a metric of their current level of evil. I mean, none of their current decisions make any sense, and maybe true evil in the world is left to those capable of causing the most confusion, because it was confusion that hath escalated this movie from the very beginning. But at the brink, Sun and Ashitaka convince the last vestige of humanity and the last god of the forest to relax. And the forest spirit goes through his spiritual tidal wave death, though not literal death, leaving us in an uneasy truce once again, and they talk about living. That if you can miraculously rewind the clock on Terror Helltown Wormworld, you walk the straight and narrow and you earn it, because the forest spirit is not dead.
He's life itself. He's not dead, son. He's here right now, trying to tell us something, that it's time for both of us to live.
And live, my goodness, that is all Ashitaka has ever wanted to do, but he was robbed of his life by a decision he has made hastily at worst, considering the circumstance, and he had to become nothing. But he never really stops being the kid, too. There's a deep redemption angle in Ashitaka's storyline that is important, and even ignoring that his sin was never really that egregious in the first place, he is attempting to get the forest spirit to be his helper in saving all of their lives, as the world they all inhabited was about to destroy itself. And in what I can only imagine is the over-deliver of all time, Ashitaka, who shot a demon-possessed demigod that led to his banishment, saves and preserves the literal literal whole of existence, human, animal, plant,
Samuel.
spirit alike, and he's worried about whether or not the forest spirit will agree to lift his curse? Hey buddy, you saved literally all living things, God and mortal alike, and existence in all observable dimensions, so you no longer pray to God. The gods are now going to pray to you. Fight less, talk more, say sorry sometimes. Holy God, have you ever said 4,800 words in succession before? Let me tell you, it's a workout. But my tongue is jacked now, it has a six-pack. Goodness me, what an episode. Please God, I hope you enjoyed it, and be sure to leave a comment letting me know what your thoughts were. Per usual, please like this video, and of extra paramount importance is to subscribe to the channel. If you love me, just do it. I don't have a lot more to say about that other than sweet Cleveland Hot Brown. I hope I don't have to do another Miyazaki movie again for a long, long time. To dare to dream. Okay, here we go. Here are your choices in the vote for the next episode of Movies with Mikey. They are Arrival, a film by Denis Villeneuve. Something no one would ever pick. Let me think. Let's Rush Hour 3, a film by Brett Ratner. Enjoy Your Trip to the Trash Can, because I wanted Two Titans to class, so the second choice, it doesn't matter. Your third choice, Moon, a film by Duncan Jones. That does it for me. Hold your heads high, friends.